Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bandit Network TV on YouTube. So, this is going to be a two-part late night stream. The first part is going to be covering the latest events that transpired at Kentucky State University. I talked about this on Rumble. Um, if you want to go listen to my commentary on that. There was a shooter yesterday at Kentucky State University. A suspect has been charged, um, and the suspect is the father of the shooter. Excuse me. One person has died. The other is in critical condition. So the latest development out of this story out of Kentucky, the parent of a Kentucky State University student is charged with a deadly shooting. So again, one person has been confirmed as being a casualty and one other is in critical condition. The parents of Kentucky State University student has been charged in connection with an on-campus shooting that left one student dead and another in critical condition. Authorities say this happened approximately at 3:30, December 10th. Jacob Lee Bard, 48, was formally charged with murder and first-degree assault, according to the Frankfurt Police Department where this is happening. The Evansville Coroner and Press, part of the USA Today network, reported earlier that jail records show Bard had been arrested on preliminary charges. Bard was on the campus of Kentucky State University in Frankfurt on December 9th and opened fire at the two victims near a student resident hall, police said. Two current students suffered gunshot wounds, and one was transported to the hospital by fire and EMS. One student who was identified as 19-year-old DeJohn Darrell Fox Jr. of Indianapolis died from his injuries at the hospital, according to police. The other student remains in critical condition. The governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, has went on to say that he believes this is an isolated incident and basically there is no threat to the community. Reminding people to support each other so things like this don't happen. Now, I'm sure that there's a lot more to this story than what is been told on media. I mean, this just happened yesterday, from my understanding. I saw this on Facebook, and I haven't looked into it until now. But there was a shooting at Kentucky State University yesterday. It wasn't a mass shooting. There was just one person. It's been confirmed as being a casualty, and the other one is in critical condition. The confusing thing about this story, though, is the way that they're describing the shooter is a student who didn't attend the university. So he wasn't a student who attended KSU, but he was described as being a juvenile. The way that I'm getting from these articles, I mean, the way, because they're not mentioning who the shooter is. However, the person who's been arrested is the person that I was speaking about in the earlier article. The parent of a student has been arrested. Now, this leads me to believe that whoever committed this crime, the person was a juvenile, because their father is being charged. In a lot of states, you're seeing that them do that now. Whenever there's a school shooting or something happens, they charge the parents with the same charges as they should. So this is what has happened. Officials in Frankfurt police departments say that they received a report of an active aggressor on KSU's campus approximately at 3:10 p.m., where officers were on scene by 3:14. Kentucky State University confirmed that 2 students were shot. One student has died, and the other is in stable but critical condition. The Franklin County Coroner's Office says that the victim who died has been identified as 19-year-old DeJohn Darrell Jr. of Indianapolis. Again, so you have the student from Indianapolis who is a casualty, and you have another one that's in critical condition, and then you have the shooter, but the parent of the shooter has been taken into custody. But then I've read also in other articles where they're describing the shooter as the person I'm looking at in this mugshot. So hold on for a second. So Jake Bard, this is the person that you're looking at within the mugshot. This Jacob Lee Bard. Now, I'm not sure if he was the one who opened fire or if it was his son, because the way that the articles are describing it as he's the father and he's been arrested for what his son did. But then there's other outlets that's saying that he's the one that opened fire. So I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. If you have a problem with the information that's been repeated tonight, you can take it up with, who is this coming from? WKYT News. So again, the suspect has been identified as 48-year-old Jacob Lee Bard of Evansville. He is charged with murder and first-degree assault. According to his arrest citation, Bard, quote, was involved in a physical altercation on the Kentucky State University campus during the incident. The subject produced a handgun and shot other individuals. So it sounds like that someone got pissed off and decided to pop somebody. He is set to appear in court for an arraignment hearing Thursday morning. So this morning, Kentucky State Police in Franklin, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in Kentucky Homeland Security were all on the scene. So, and it goes on to say this is a developing story. I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but I didn't. There's not much that's coming out of this case. I haven't saw anything besides the father being arrested for what his son did. But then again, I don't even know if that's true, because I'm hearing other reports of the father's the one who opened fire. I don't know. I do not know. But anyways, moving on to the second part of this podcast, the Chance Englebert case. And if you're familiar with if you've been following my channel, you should be familiar with Chance Englebert. He was 25 years old at the time of him disappearing on July 6th, of 2019. It's been said that he got into an altercation with his in-laws, and him and his wife Bailey were going to go back to Wyoming abruptly because he wanted to leave. When they went back to the in-laws' house, which is located in Gering, Nebraska, that's when Chance hopped out of the car and started walking off, and he was never seen again by anybody else. Allegedly. That's how the story goes. So, long story short, that happened back in 2019. There's a lot more to that story, mind you, but I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'm just going to cut to the chase. So, that happened back in 2019, and fast forward to a couple months ago, few months back in October, there was remains found at a national monument, Scotts Bluff National Monument on the outskirts of Gary, Nebraska. This is located within the last location that Chance was allegedly seen at by doorbell cameras and also confirmed by his cellular phone pings. They found remains on the side of this monument. They sent them off for DNA testing, even though the Chance's family basically confirmed that it was his based off of the, the belongings that were found with the remains. 2 weeks ago, the remains came back from the laboratory, and it confirmed what everybody already suspected, which was it was Chance Englebert. So they ruled that Chance Englebert, his death was accidental, and it was caused from a substantiated fall. I think that's how it was phrased. It don't make no sense. I mean, if you haven't noticed, that's why I'm talking about it. Otherwise, if I really believed that it was natural causes that how he died, I wouldn't be sitting up here talking about Chance Englebert. But I don't think it was an accident. I don't think that he wandered off that night in the middle of the fucking rain just to go to a monument and why would he be going there? That's the main thing. Excuse me, I need to step outside. So, God, where do we start with this? Because there's so much I want to say. I guess in order for you to understand this case and why I say that, you have to know the circumstances under which Chance disappeared. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to go back in time to 2019 when him, his wife Bailey, and their son that they share, which at the time was 2 months old. It was July 4th weekend of 2019. Chance, Bailey, and Matt's Chance's best friend, all decided originally that they were going to stay at Chance's place in Wyoming, Moorcroft, for 4th of July. However, last minute change of plans led them to go to Gary, Nebraska, where Bailey's in-laws are. No one knows why there was an abrupt change of plans or anything else, but whenever they arrived, the story goes, Chance went to the golf course with his in-laws. It was several male in-laws that he went to the golf course with, and he was drinking. They were all drinking, heavily drinking. And out of the blue, I guess, according to Bailey, she received a phone call from Chance, and he said he was insistent that he wanted to go back to Wyoming and that he wanted her to come pick him up now, like ASAP. So Bailey came, picked him up. No one really knows what happened or what was said between the time that she picked Chance up at the golf course and the time that they got back to their in-laws. And that's one of the questions that I've asked since studying this case, is what was happening between the time that Chance was being picked up at the golf course and the time that, y'all went back to the grandmother's house to pick up your things or whatever. What happened? What was said? What was his demeanor? I mean, none of these things are known because Bailey has not came out and spoke about her version of events. There's only been one version of the story, and that's been told by Bailey, and she's only spoke about it one or two times on a podcast, and that's it. So that's why I'm questioning what happened between the time that you picked him up at the golf course and you went back to the grandmother's house, for one. But that's when whatever happened between that time upset Chance and pissed him off enough where he hopped out of the car and just decided to walk home. He was trying to catch a ride home, right? So he was trying to hitchhike a ride, calling Matt, calling family, calling his mom, calling whoever he can to come pick him up in North Dakota. No, I'm sorry, not North Dakota. Nebraska, to find a ride back to Moorcroft, Wyoming. When Chance went off and walked into Gehring, and people were trying to get a hold of him, and he was trying to get a hold of everybody else, while all of this is happening, there's this huge thunderstorm that is rolling in the area. And the storm that night rose, I think, the river 3 inches, something crazy. It was a lot of rain, it was a lot of hail, and it was a lot of lightning. Now, the reason why I'm saying that, it goes into what I'm about to talk about. I'm not just blabbing on, I'm mentioning these details so you guys can take notes and understand why he just didn't go up on the mountain and, perish. So there was a huge storm that night. You have Chance, who's trying to find a ride back to Wyoming. Mind you, he's a rancher. He's, you know, a country boy. He knows nature. He's going to respect it. So it's not like that he's not completely oblivious and naive. God, there's just so much to this story, y'all. It don't make no sense. The guy was trying to find a ride back home. You have eyewitnesses who reported seeing Chance. You have him on surveillance footage making a 90-degree turn, catching him looking down at his phone. What appears to be him following a map so he can go somewhere and get to his final destination. He was just not out roaming blindlessly or with no point or no destination. He was not out drunk, intoxicated, didn't know what he was doing. And that's how he ended up on the mountain. That didn't happen. I don't think it happened. I don't believe that. So, the last contact that Chance had was, I think, with his aunt, his, and they text him around 9 something at night. The last text that they received was a series of jumbled letters that didn't make any sense. They were illegible. An emoji, like an emoticon. And what's weird about that is when you ask people that are close to Chance, he didn't use emoticons, and they'll just go ahead and tell you he didn't send that message. They don't believe that he sent that message and somebody else had his phone. And also, oh yeah, so this is also important too. So I didn't know this information, or maybe it was out and I just didn't listen to it. But the private investigator Ryan Couch, who has worked on this case, has said that approximately, I can't remember the time off the top of my head, but from the time that whoever had Chance's phone was sending that message and talking to the aunt, immediately afterwards, the phone records showed that it encountered catastrophic damage. Now, that's the first time that I've heard that type of terminology when discussing cell phones. Apparently, catastrophic damage means exactly that. It means the phone experienced some type of catastrophic loss, whether it be water damage, broken, shattered. Something happened to Chance's phone where it was a catastrophic event. It registered as that soon after he sent those messages, if it was him sending those messages from his phone. So let me say that again. Something catastrophic happened to his phone soon after he or whoever sent that message to the aunt. Now, it could be that it was caused by the rain, because again, it was a heavy rainstorm that night. And if you're thinking, well, he could have been out walking on the road and the water got on the screen, and that explains the text message, the weird emoticons. Because like how sometimes when you get water on your phone, it it types numbers accidentally because the screen is thinking that it's your finger. It could be that. That could also explain the catastrophic damage, water damage, um, or it could just be something else. You know, for me, because I thought about that too. With it raining that night, as heavy as a rain it was, and that weird message, one of the things that I initially thought was, well, the water could have got on the screen and he accidentally sent that text, or the phone sent the text by itself. It typed out a message because the screen was wet. That's what I was thinking. But how do you explain the catastrophic damage immediately after that? It's weird, suspicious timing. Now, mind you, Chance's phone has never been recovered to this day. There was a phone that was found soon after Chance disappeared. Um, and even more suspicious, the phone that magically showed up out of nowhere on their back porch. So someone deliberately placed it there soon after Chance went missing. Bailey, now get this, because people want to, people wonder why she gets a hard time, and this is one of the reasons why, because of the weird shit, the weird suspicious stuff, the shit that happens that you do makes people think that you know more than what you're telling. Bailey took that phone immediately, and according to what she said, she gave it to the police. Now, again, this is just versions of the story, so take of it as you wish. So you have to trust Bailey that she actually handed over the phone to the police. I've read that the police looked through Ellie, the cops looked through the phone, and they determined that it had nothing to do with Chance, that it was just some homeless man's phone. But still, I think that's weird. I don't know. I'm telling this story to inform you and educate you on this case, but this podcast is about the findings and the ruling of the autopsy, and it showed that it was an accident. There was no foul play that was involved. It said that he died from a fall. The cause of death was caused by a fall, but other than that, it don't say nothing. Now, the reason why I do not think this case is an accident and Chance succumbed to the elements and just, died on the side of mash, basically a cliff, because that's what it is. When you look at the pictures of this national monument, Scotts Bluff National Monument. If I was on my computer, I would pull it up, but I'm not near my computer right now. But if you look at this national monument, and if you think, well, how could someone purposely, or I'm sorry, accidentally Okay? How could someone accidentally stumble up there? How could they accidentally stumble up there? How can they, you know, how could they stumble up there at night? Okay? It's at night and it's pouring cats and dogs, and I'm half drunk or I've been drinking, but you know what? I accidentally stumbled on this monument that's completely out of the way. And where these remains were found were at a location on this monument that you had to go out of the way. Like the remains were found by hikers, apparently. They spotted the remains. And it wasn't just off the trail, it was on the side, on the literal side of this monument. That tells me that even if you want to say, well, he slipped and fell, off the side, don't you think that someone within 5 years, and that be a national monument, most likely frequently visited, someone would notice something? Clothing, not necessarily bones, because bones, they get covered in dirt after a body, over time, as it decays, the bones get covered by dirt. However, the clothes, his hat, his energy drink, if he was carrying that, his dip, chewing tobacco, all of that wouldn't go anywhere. That stuff wouldn't go anywhere. You see what I'm saying? So, how does 5 years pass with no one noticing that he's on the mountain, for one? Well, that's actually two. Because one, like I said before, how the fuck are you going to get on the side of that ravine and it's pouring the rain? You've been drinking and it's pitch fucking dark. No lights, no street lights, no interstate lights. We're not talking like this is you know, a town off the interstate. This is little towns. Gering, Terrytown, Scottsbluff, Nebraska. These are small towns. No lights. How are you going to be walking on the side of the road and end up on the side of a mountain? This monument that you couldn't even see it, even if you were, trying to locate it, even if he was trying to locate the monument, it would be hard to see at night. So, again, no, I don't think that he wandered up there alone, and apparently the family is not refusing to accept this either. Because they flat out gave a statement saying that this does not give them closure and that they still have a lot of questions, even more now than they did before. Because why did he end up there? You can't blame him, especially under the circumstances. Again, you have to go back to the beginning of the story. Any of these cases, and this is one thing that I've had to learn by myself. since talking about true crime, I've learned you have to go back to the beginning of the story to find the answers, because that's where the truth lies. And with this case in particular, you only have really two people that can tell you what happened that evening right before Chance Englebert walked off into the sunset. Again, why has Bailey not came out and gave any statements regarding her husband, who is now deceased, who's been missing for 5 years? If you're truly innocent, and if you truly did not have anything to hide, why not? Why not? Now, I respect and I get that people, their privacy and how these cases go. And this family, they have been accused of having something to do with Chance's disappearance. But again, if you truly are innocent, and if you don't know anything more than what you have told the cops, then I don't see why you wouldn't come out and speak about your husband. That's just me. I wouldn't care what people think. Now, that's just me. Again, I'm speaking for myself. If my family was missing, if my loved one was gone for 5 years, I would be out on the news advocating, obviously. And I wouldn't care what people think if I had nothing to do with it. But you only get one narration, and that's Bailey's narration of what happened, what really happened that evening. You haven't heard the in-laws come out and talk, the last people that he was with that evening. The same group of guys that he was drinking with at the golf course, you haven't heard them talk. Never. Bailey is actually the one that told the story of him being at the golf course and them having an argument. Something was said about his job. And that's another thing too. I forgot to mention that part. Something was said about Chance's new job that he would be starting the following Monday, because he had recently been laid off from his mining job. It wasn't only him, it was a lot of other people that they laid off. So he was scheduled to start a job, and they were allegedly, apparently, supposedly, there was something said to him that upset him enough which prompted him to call Bailey and come pick him up immediately, and that he wanted to go back home to Nebraska or Wyoming. Whatever was said was so bad, he needed to go back home. He wanted to go back home. What was that? What could have been said that bad? What was that bad? That's one thing that I've always questioned. Is that even true? That story that she's given over the years, this same narration that we've heard. Oh, he got upset over something that was said at his job. He stormed off. He called Bailey to come get him. We don't know what happened to him. Bullshit. Was he actually at the golf course? Or was he somewhere else? There's been other eyewitnesses that's placed Chance at the golf course. That's not really what I'm asking, is whether he was at the golf course or not. I'm asking what actually happened, or what was said. What started this whole thing to make him want to go back home? I mean, how does your evening go from everything going smooth, everyone getting along, no problems, and then all of a sudden you want to go back home? Is what Bailey told the cops, what she told the cops, was it true? And that's honestly what she knows. That's all that she knows. Well, then the question falls back on the people that were at the golf course with Chance, because they're the ones that actually know what happened and what started this entire thing and what led him to be on the side of a ravine. No, I'm talking about Chance Englebert. I mean, his death is ruled as accidental. Let's see if I can pull this up. So the cops are saying that the Gering police is saying that they don't believe his death was anything but a tragic accident. Pull up exactly what they said here. So, again, this is kind of old news, but I'm catching up on it. I've already spoke about this on Rumble. If you want to go over and listen to my commentary on Rumble, again, I've also talked about the shooting that happened at Kentucky State University yesterday. One person was killed. The other is in critical condition at the hospital, and the suspect has been arrested. Go over to Bandit Network TV 2 on Rumble if you want to hear more about that. So right here, this is posted 2 weeks ago. On October 10th of 2025, human remains were found at the Scottsbluff National Monument property in Nebraska. More than a month later, the remains have been identified as Chance Englebert, a Wyoming man who went missing nearly 6 years ago in Gering on July 6th of 2019. Dateline covered Chance's disappearance in September of 2019 as a part of our Missing in America digital series. He was reported missing by his wife, Bailey, in July 2019. Chance was last seen leaving the residence of his wife's grandmother's on the evening of July 6, 2019. That Dateline spoke with Bailey Englebert in 2019. She said that her husband was out golfing. Okay. She said that her husband had been out golfing with her family in the afternoon, but had left The outing early after Chance got upset in a misunderstanding. That's the part where I was, saying whatever was said to him, he got pissed off and he wanted to leave. Bailey said that she drove him back to her grandparents' house, but Chance became upset again and walked away from the house. And that's where, he was last physically seen. Bailey says that when he gets mad, he'll walk off to cool down. Um, she goes on to say, but I didn't think he'd go far. He just kept walking until I couldn't see him. I didn't think he was serious. Bailey said that her last communication with her husband was at 7:46 p.m. on July 6, 2019, when Chance told her he was walking south. She said she would later learn that he had also been in contact with friends and told them that he was walking north towards Torrington, Wyoming, over the Nebraska-Wyoming border. So he was telling his wife that he was going in the opposite direction, and he was telling his family from back home that he's going in another one. Police told Dateline at the time that the rain. Oh, let me back up here. I'm sorry. So, police told Dateline, they're referring to the storm that rolled through the area that night. At the time, the rain had been cold, so they were worried about the lightning and possibility that Chance could get hypothermia. Heavy rains would also mean the risk of slipping into rivers and streams. At the time of his disappearance, Bailey told Dateline that Chance would not leave his family. The couple just had become parents to a son, and he was born in May 2019. Over the last 6 years, there has been many searches for Chance. There has been many searches for Chance. This week, and this was posted on November 26th of 2025, the Gering Police Department and the Scottsbluff County Attorney released a joint press release about the recent events and news regarding the investigation. The investigation involved more than a dozen agencies around the state of Nebraska, plus forensic canine and search teams from Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, Utah, and New Mexico, in addition to federal agencies. So the FBI was on this case. Officers conducted hundreds of interviews and served numerous. I'm assuming that the FBI is on this case. I don't know if they. Well, let me not say that. Again, I'm assuming because they said federal agencies, but I've never heard of any official reports of FBI working on Chance Englebert disappearance. They released a joint press. Already read that. So, yeah, lost my place. The investigation involved more than a dozen agencies from around the state of Nebraska, plus forensic canine and search teams from Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico, Utah, as well as federal agencies. Officers also conducted hundreds of interviews and served numerous search warrants for phone records, social media accounts, financial records, and other technical data. The press release stated they never found anything that led to Chance's whereabouts. On October 10th of 2025, hikers discovered human remains at Scotts Bluff National Monument in Nebraska. After the discovery, the Scotts Bluff County Attorney's Office put out a press release stating that there were also several items located near the remains and that the family has self-identified the remains as belonging to Chance. However, it would take more than a month to make an official identification. Multiple experts in forensic dentistry, forensic anthropology, and archaeology and forensic pathology assisted with the identification through dental records and DNA testing, according to the press release. They go on to say that the cause of death, and this is important, this is a whole key of this, the cause of death is listed as, quote, a pattern of blunt force trauma most consistent with a rapid acceleration, decelerating event involving but not limited to a fall from a height. So let me repeat that again. The cause of death is listed as a pattern of blunt force trauma most consistent with a rapid deceleration event, including but not limited to a fall from height. According to the joint statements from the Gering PD and the Scottsbluff County Attorney's Office, after a full investigation, there is no evidence that the death of Chance Englebert was anything other than accidental. The Help Find Chance Englebert Facebook page remains open. About the news, Dawn has went on to say Chance's mother on that Facebook page, she writes, not any type of closure to us. We will always have more questions. And they want to thank everybody who has showed support and helped with the search over the years. Let me go ahead and put him on the screen. Here's who we're talking about. Chance Leslie Englebert. He was 25 at the time of him disappearing. July 6th of 2019, his remains have been confirmed about 2 weeks ago, and they were found off the side of a cliff at a monument in Nebraska. Now, the part that I've already read this before this podcast, but the part that where I was reading, let's see. The cause of death is listed as a pattern of blunt force trauma most consistent with rapid decelerating event, including but not limited to a fall from height. Including but not limited 2. So, let's see. So, what is a rapid deceleration injury? Because, like I said, it says limited, including but not limited to a fall from height. So, in other words, they believe that's what happened to him, but they can't be certain that is what happened. So, a rapid deceleration injury, which is what Chance came to, occurs when a body in fast motion suddenly stops, causing internal organs, especially the brain, to slam against internal structures like the skull, leading to damage such as concussions, bruising, torn nerve fibers, and internal bleeding, often seen in car crashes, falls, and sports impact. So, I mean, that's be caused by anything really. Sudden stop, inertia, shearing and tearing. A moving object or a person halts abruptly, transferring the immense force. The brain, being a soft organ, continues moving forward and impacts the side of the skull. The brain then recoils, shearing and tearing, hitting the opposite side of the skull, causing tearing to the nerve, stretching and tearing to the nerve fibers. Some common causes of rapid deceleration injury include, but not limited to, motor vehicle accidents, falls, sports injuries, and physical assaults. Physical assaults. Now, they didn't give a details of where the blunt force trauma is, and of course the public's not going to know that information. The family will be lucky if they know that information even, but if his injuries were on the head, and if it shows blunt force trauma on the head, if it shows contusion on the head and nowhere else, that is immediately suspicious. If it shows blunt force trauma on various parts of the body, like when you get punched, you get bruised. So if there's multiple bruises or signs, which of course you're not going to be, they wouldn't be able to tell that information, because keep in mind, we're not talking about a ripe corpse, a fresh dead body. We're talking about bones, remains, that's been sitting out in the element for 5 years. Possibly had some other shit done to it. It's sketchy. Was Chance beat to death? Was he beat to death? And dumped out in that spot where no one found him for over 5 years. I'm just trying to make sense of it. Was he able to get a car ride? Did someone pick up Chance? Was he actually successful with getting a ride, but I don't know, an accident happened? Because that's what it seems like. That's what Ryan Couch, the private investigator who has worked on this case, he said that he thinks it's an accident. So I don't know what he means by that with this blunt force trauma. But he also says he also said this key piece of information that is very important here. And I still think this plays into factor for what happened to Chance, and this is relevant. The private investigator said there were multiple eyewitnesses who reported seeing two white females who were running on the side of the road trying to wave a car down. And then a white truck pulled up. This guy in a white truck pulled up. He picked up the two females, and then they drove off. Now, how is this relevant when it pertains to Chance? Well, all of this happened around not only the same time that he was in that area where he went missing, near Terrytown, I think that's where it is, but this was also the location. So you have the location where his phone last pinged from, and one of the last known locations you can physically put him at based off of doorbell cameras and other surveillance. You have two females who are waving down a white truck, and they described like they were in a panic. Hopped in the truck. You had a guy that picked them up, they hopped in the truck, drove off. And all of this was happening around the same time that Chance went missing. That's why, if you didn't know, in my opinion, there's more to this story than what's been told. I do not think this was first of all, I want to say that he didn't succumb to the elements. I refuse to believe that. He did not succumb to the elements. He didn't wander out there by himself. He was put there, placed there. Dead. Who's to say that this guy didn't piss off his in-laws Whatever was said at the golf course just broke, went to hell, and he got jumped. I wouldn't put that past what happened, especially now with this information. Because the lack of answers that we still have, it just don't make any sense. And the events, everything that was transpiring that evening, and you want us to believe that he wandered off in the wilderness on the side of this monument, natural landmark, in the dark, pitch black, pouring the rain, and he had been drinking, but he decided, it would be a good idea to go up there out of all reasons. What happened? What really happened? Does the police realize that, hey, the family's not going to be happy with this, but we can't honestly tell you how he died. All we know is that those were his remains and that he died of blunt force trauma and he probably fell. We can't tell you how he died. So is this a case of police being incompetent? Or just not probably suspecting that, yeah, this guy probably got jumped and beat to death. But hey, we only have remains. We don't actually have a full body to work with to prove that. So we're just going to say that he died of blunt force trauma and it was just accidental. Another thing that I just thought about with that whole strange story about the two females being picked up in the truck. What if Chance, like I said, he was able to he was able to get a ride home, and that's whatever happened to him. He met his demise in a car. He got into a fight with somebody, with a hitchhiker that was going to give him a ride. He was hitchhiking a ride with somebody. Shit hit the fan. Went all to hell. Probably said something that pissed somebody off, the driver off. Boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, he's dead and he's on the side of a mountain. Or on the side of this natural landmark. What if they brake checked him? What if they brake checked him? What if he was able to get inside the car with somebody and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt? They slammed the brakes because they were trying to prompt him to get out or whatever. And he hit the windshield and it just knocked him dead. Is that what happened? I mean, just make it make sense. I'm not trying to be funny or crude. I'm just trying to make it make sense. Because with you saying blunt force trauma, well, that can be caused by anything. And like what I just read to you, it said including but not limited to an event such as a fall. So it can be a fall. Yes, he could have fell, but also, he could have been beat to death by baseball bats or pistol whipped or you name it. So, with that being said, I'm not going to continue hyping on this for an hour and a half. I've been on here for an hour and 10 minutes. What are my final thoughts on the Englebert case? I think that there's people out there that still know something about what happened to Chance. And they're not speaking. I do not think Mr. Englebert wandered up on this cliff and decided to just succumb to the elements or went up there to kill himself or die. I don't think that. I think that someone placed him up there, whether it was, well, if that was the case, then the crime would be concealing a death, concealing a body, concealing a death. But regardless, whether you want to believe it was a death or it was just an accident cover up, he didn't get up on that cliff by himself. So let's just say that someone, it was just the heat of the passion, like what I mentioned before, the crazy freak accident scenario of him being picked up by a hitchhiker and him not wearing a seatbelt. Driver decided they changed their mind. They don't want to give him a ride. They slammed on the brakes, made him get out. And whenever they did that, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He hit his head on the windshield, knocked him unconscious, possibly dead. All of a sudden, you have this bystander, this complete stranger, okay, giving somebody a ride, thought that he was just giving a hitchhiker a ride. But by the end of the night, he became, well, I don't want to say a murderer, but, a manslaughter. You know what I mean. By the end of the night, he ended up killing somebody. That was the furthest thing from his mind. So he freaked out. They freaked out. The people that were given the rides, and they took Chance up there and they tried to conceal the body and they drove off. If you want to come from a simple standpoint, doesn't have to go exactly like that, but something like there could have been any accident that happened with a group of people that have invested interest in covering it up because their freedom and their lives are on the line. So even if he was, even if it was an accident, like I said, the crime then would be concealing a death. And you can bet your sweet ass that no one is about to come forth and say anything, especially now after this information. Case closed. We got away with it. Won't you know that? We got away with it. We got away with killing a man. Whether we, intended to kill him or we didn't really intend to kill him, we just wanted to rough him up a bit, or I was just giving him a ride and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Smashed against the windshield and died. Either way, you cut it, it's still a crime if you choose to conceal the fucking death. And with that being said, thank you all for listening to this podcast. If you have stuck around towards the end, be sure to like the video. Do me a huge favor. Press the like button if you already haven't. Share your thoughts on this outcome of the Chance Englebert case. If you're familiar with it, go check out Bandit Network TV 2 on Rumble. Follow me over there. Follow me on X. Follow me on Blue Sky. Follow me on TikTok. I'm coming back to TikTok in 2026. I haven't been posting on TikTok, but I'm making my comeback on TikTok in 2026. I have, I think, 15,000 subscribers over there. If you go in, or followers on TikTok, if you want to go search me on TikTok, um, and follow me over there, because in 2026 I'm going to be going to other platforms and doing my content more. Because YouTube has gone to shit. Thank y'all for watching. Until the next time I'll see you. You have been listening to Bandit Network TV. Hold on for 1 second. Where I go? I want to leave y'all with something to chew on and think about. So, as I'm ending this podcast, I want anybody that's been listening to this and what I've had about, you know, said about the Chance Englebert case. I want you to look at this monument and you come up with ways of how he could have uh, ended up on the side of this national or natural landmark. We're talking about an area like this. This thing is huge. This is not even the full picture that I have here. This thing wraps around. But I want you to think about you traveling the road at night, walking the road, pouring the rain, and how you accidentally ended up here when you were trying to find a ride back home and you were walking the roads with GPS in the pitch black rain and you accidentally end up here. You've been listening to Bandit Network TV on YouTube.